Welcome to the CPhI Conference on PAT and Quality by Design, QBD. The tagline for this conference is Pharma 4.0, a way leading to PAT. So I was intrigued by that tagline, and I asked myself, is PAT leading to Pharma 4.0, or is it Pharma 4.0 leading to PAT? So when asked to give a keynote, I'm focusing my thoughts on that question. A keynote is synonymous with being a centerpiece, core, crux, essence, gist, heart, pivot, point, bottom line. So what is my keynote? The title I have chosen for my keynote is an option. PAT leading to Pharma 4.0 or vice versa. Those are your two options. And the message I wish to share with you is to cease dependence on inspection, and you do so via maturity of self, systems, and societies. In this talk, I'll summarize 4 key points. Industry 4.0 and Pharma 4.0 in theory and practice. What is the difference? Overview of the PAT initiative and the lessons in its trials and tribulations. Pharmaceutical manufacturing the next decade, and thriving strategies and tactics for corporates and professionals. Which option you will choose depends on where you are today, PAT leading to 4.0 or vice versa. To understand the choice between these two options, let me build on the second tagline of this conference, ensuring quality with right design and analytical process. Ensure is to warrant. Quality is an experience. So what is right? Design or analytical process? On the flip side, if right is right, is the left wrong? That's the deeper meaning that I want to explore with you. In the context of quality is integral, a warrant justifies quantitative evidence to claims, which is fundamental to our industry. Industry 4.0 and Pharma 4.0 in theory and practice. What's the difference? Technology innovation occurs at an exponential rate. Industry 4.0 now is a political force. It underpins the Great Reset. Pharma 4.0 is occurring in a regulated environment. It is occurring at a different rate. It is occurring under good manufacturing practices. It is occurring in the context of evidence-based medicine. At least that's what we hope. We know from prior knowledge, without regulations, profiteers thrive on addicting the public. The opium traders, the snake oil salesmen, the tobacco sector, the internet apps, all thrive on addicting the public. We, within an evidence-based medicine structure, are still vulnerable to that temptation. We are not mature enough yet, as we can see from the opioid crisis that continues. So, is PAT profit after tax, or is PAT at the core process analytical technology to understand and control our manufacturing processes? Is the key question. The right answer to that question comes when left is not wrong, and that happens when right is right. Left is not wrong when right is right is a theme that I will elaborate in the subsequent slides. Exploitation and exploration, bottom line and top line, being ambidextrous is a key to success going forward. The conference agenda over the 2 days provides a comprehensive overview of the PAT initiatives. Real-time release testing, pharmacopoeias, NIR, quality by design to continuous process improvements, on-demand manufacturing, technology transfer, PAT for APIs. I'll be coming back to speak tomorrow on current status of PAT and QBD and application of PAT to biopharmaceutical manufacturing, risk and design of experiments, continuous manufacturing and cost and quality, continuous process verifications, and gaps between industry and academia. The keynote that I want to be the centerpiece of all these topics is that your problem is not technology. The problem is you. You lack the will to change. This is a quote from an alien visiting the Earth in the movie When the Earth Stood Still, which was a 2008 movie. And it is fundamental for us to appreciate the right and the left thinking about PAT, about quality by design, and about where we are today. Out of the crisis, thinking fast and slow, immunity to change, and our divided brain, the master and his emissary, are the books that I recommend to you to underpin the intellectual and the philosophical aspects underpinning the challenges we face today. Elephant in the Dark is the original story originating in India, signifying the yearning for deeper understanding and for systems thinking, misunderstood in the West, in the Western mind, to be renamed Six Blind Men and the Elephant. This Eastern and Western view somehow relates to the left and right discussion that we should have. Let me put it in the context of learning and developing. Statistical process control, quality systems approaches to managing quality have matured outside the sector for many decades. Yet, these concepts, these practices only became part of our guidelines 20 years ago. 20 years later, what we know and what we implement, there's a huge gap. And we don't know how to fill that gap often. Why? Are we blind? How do you see an elephant in the dark? We see an elephant in the dark when each one of us holds our candle high and we go in together. We can see the elephant. The elephant in the dark, or the six blind men and the elephant, is a stark reminder that as humans, we struggle to take a systems approach. Perhaps systems thinking and systems approach, particularly in systems which are socio-technical systems, not purely engineered system, is a measure of our maturity, a measure of our development. If that is so, then the challenge we face is humongous ahead of us. As the economies, the financial system resets, as supply chains disrupts, we have to work hard and urgently to mitigate workforce disruptions, remove fear of data sharing, support inclusive technology adoption, prepare to navigate disruptions in global supply and value chains, leverage, not exploit, sustainable production as a competitive advantage. That is, By design, we have to take a system of systems approach. The first step towards that, as profiteers, we must learn to be patient. As patient, we must bridge the information, knowledge, and understanding asymmetry. As professionals, we must practice, and with practice, become good practitioners. Supply chain disruptions, financial economic disruptions requires us to move away from fixed in time manufacturing. The raw materials that we use, their suppliers are likely to change. Their quality is likely to change. We cannot just rely on certificate of analysis, because the certificate of analysis does not provide the processability, the functionality of most of our excipients. That was the reason the PAT guidance brought about real-time release, real-time controls, in-process, inline controls. PAT guidance also ushered in the notion of process understanding, so that you can validate in-process controls based on that understanding and not side-by-side comparison to the old methods, such as in case of blend uniformity. Yet, some of the principles of the PAT guidance have not seen the light of day 20 years later. As an example, real-time release within the PAT guidance is far more nuanced, far more matured, whereas real-time release testing guidelines that came about later on brought back the testing to document mentality, missed out on the understanding of processes that is so very important. So the challenge, what we face now, is we have to mature ourselves. We need internal validation. We should stop looking for external validation. Our internal validation should be so well done that external validation is a given. We cannot wait for guidances by regulators to do something. And we have to move away from the pharmacopoeial mindset to the mindset of measurement uncertainty that the National Institute of Standards has evolved over the years. That's the reason why FDA recently signed a collaborative research and development agreement with NIST to usher in Industry 4.0. Cease dependence on inspection to achieve quality. Eliminate the need for massive inspection by building quality into the product in the first place. The words of Dr. Deming reminds us that these are fundamental principles. To understand these principles, we have to know the meaning of measurement maturity and management moksha. Immunity to change is founded on constructive development theory of adult human development of Professor Keegan. Constructive development means humans are makers of meaning, and how they make meaning is related to the stages of development. Some of us continue to develop, but at different rate. Many do not. And we stop developing when we stop making meaning from different perspectives. Making meaning of quality, assurance, are all subjective. My meaning as a professional of quality has to resonate with the meaning patients make of quality. The regulators make the meaning of quality. So meaning making is key to our development. And self-authorship is a stage in adult human development where systems orientation and systems thinking begins. and it is key to overcoming immunity to change. From the early days of the PAT initiative, when I heard Pfizer say don't use, don't tell at the FDA Science Board meeting, to what Amgen's journey to Six Sigma, not the methodology, but to a low error rate of 3.4 defects per million opportunity. If I don't look, there is no problem. It took them 10 years to get to Six Sigma. They had to overcome their immunity to change. Their first challenge was the feeling system. If I don't look, there is no problem, signifies the comfort of it is FDA approved, it is validated, so if I don't look, there is no problem. You have to overcome that. Take responsibility for the quality of your products. The change prevention system was a comparability protocol. Comparability protocol was the original meaning of design space, which got quantified a bit narrowly in the ICH Q10 revision 2, unfortunately. But we still have comparability protocol. So taking advantage of comparability protocols, overcoming the feeling, then the key challenge is to solve problems, effective investigations, the knowing system, knowledge management. And once you empower everybody in the organization to solve problems at their level, then system starts maturing and we move towards prevention of errors. Remember, corrective action, preventive action is not continual improvement. And how you define your specifications, if you define your specifications as pass-fail, you will never have continual improvement. If you define your specifications as a compendial, no unit shall be outside 80 to 125 or whatever, that is a trap to remain in corrective and preventive action. You have to define things differently. You have to find the meaning differently. So I think we need to do some very serious soul searching within the pharma sector. Dr. Woodcock uttered those words in the context of clinical system, but I think those are equally apt for us today. So, if our systems are broken, what is the way out of hell? It is by increasing our orders of consciousness. It is developing ourselves. How do you develop ourselves? How do you empower our self-development? It is through epistemology. Again, why epistemology? In any society, physicians are among the most educated in terms of years of education and training. They are the most experienced in terms of internships, in terms of residency before licensing. So, if the Institute of Medicine in the US in 2009 and 10 noted that the continuing education system for the healthcare professionals in the US has failed, in their words, and that the US needs a continuing professional development system, we are not alone, but we are in a much bigger challenge because our societies, professional societies, some are PhDs, some are masters, some are bachelors, and our operators may not have a degree. And yet we have to achieve higher orders of consciousness. How do we do that? I think the answer also came about through the Institute of Medicine, jointly with National Academy of Science and National Academy of Engineering in 2018, workshop recommended that an integrated design and system thinking is needed. Now, I wish the healthcare system had responded in 2010 to those recommendations of Institute of Medicine, because To Err is Human was the report in 1999 in parallel to the efforts at FDA to usher in the PAT and the pharmaceutical CGMPs for the 21st Century Initiative. And what we learned through research at Johns Hopkins and others is the medical errors are the third leading cause of death. And the type of errors that they encounter are similar: SOP violations, non-adherence to GMPs or to good practices. Good practices are nothing but following SOPs. So today, a prescription is for, we know that prescription is for patient, but now we are all patient. I think we have to think from that perspective. Care is research, knowledge is power, and wisdom is in practice. The challenge we face now is power without wisdom is a recipe for disaster, and we are confronting a disaster. When we take a reductionist approach, that is, when we don't pay attention to system and we don't take a systems orientation to take responsibility for our contribution to the overall system, then despite having an external regulatory body, external quality unit, or an independent quality unit does not matter, because we are blind to our blindness. We have very little idea of how little we know. We are not designed to know how little we know. Just as an example, diethylene glycol poisoning in 1937 ushered in the FD&C Act in the US. It took 70 years after that act was enacted to open our eyes to measure diethylene glycol in excipients such as glycerin. In the meanwhile, tens of thousands of people have died around the world for diethylene glycol, which we knew before 1937, actually, the poisoning aspect. Not taking responsibility, deflecting responsibility to external regulators. It is FDA approved, it is validated, so if I don't look, there's no problem, is a recipe for disaster. Measurement maturity is key. Many of our measurements, especially measurement of physical attributes such as dissolution, particle size, particle shape, the surface charges, are not mature. They're not valid in the truer sense that as compared to our analytical methods for solution-based separation science, which has advanced so rapidly. But our measurement systems for solid state properties, characteristics, attributes are not mature. This is in part what keeps our system in a corrective action mode, in addition to how we set specifications. We are busy correcting common cause, chasing our tail, and that becomes a reason to rationalize deviant behavior, breaches in assurance of data integrity. So, what is the solution? The solution is first acknowledgement that common sense is not so common. Common sense is the collection of prejudices acquired by age 18. Our beliefs are cause maps that we impose on the world, after which we see what we have already imposed. The solution is hidden in plain sight. The guidance documents such as PAT, process validation, quality system, ICHQ-10, etc. reflects our collective wisdom. The principles outlined in these guidances for the material world are equally applicable for our mind. How do we make evidence-based decision in our mind as we do for the material? How we take evidence-based decision for our thoughts. So here is a simple way to think about it. Let's start in the physical domain with object and events, the left-hand side of this figure. So as soon as we observe objects and events, we we transform our observations into information, data and information. So we have moved from a physical domain to information domain. So when we read or somebody reads that information, that goes into the mind, the cognitive domain, and it is a basis of situation awareness. My situation awareness might be different from your situation awareness, but through communication, through collaboration, we have a shared understanding of our situation awareness. The situation awareness interacts with our internal mental models, prior knowledge, and prior understanding. With those interactions, back and forth discussions, we recognize that some of our prior knowledge may not be correct, so we need new prior knowledge, and we gain a deeper understanding of the situation. And in doing so, we are making sense. We are sense making. And when we do the sense making with the right meaning of the words, right logic, then we make good judgment. Our judgment then becomes a intent, a command to initiate planning. Planning provides directives which have to be synchronized into actions of our team members. Those actions then generate the objective, and the thing continues. Between these things are our emotions, beliefs, and perceptions. Correct, wrong, whatever they may be. But remember, by definition, the word experience means to feel. So if we wish to learn from our experience, we need to feel in a correct way. And we can support each other through decision support tools. One, our situation awareness. We need to improve awareness of each other. Two, I think respect our emotions and feelings in a way that we transform those feelings, that experience, into vigilance, into making the right decisions, and not saying, if I don't look, there is no problem here. And so that our judgment tools that come about are as close to truth as possible. And to do that, I think we leverage our go, no go gates or project management meetings appropriately by asking the right questions. So the tools 1, 2, 3 are very easy to implement. I had the privilege to lead the PAT initiative at FDA and to take the ICH process, ICH Q8 to step 2. And this is a memory from step 2 that was captured by the rapporteur, that working group. And the acknowledgement given to me was the 3 phrases which I used often during our deliberations: design space, Procrustean, and epistemological. Epistemology is the theory of knowledge. It is, how do you know what you know? Design space, as I noted already, I think is a space which was intended to provide a continual improvement within the quality management system without the need for prior approval supplement. Now, in combination with comparability protocol, I think the current definition of design space in ICHQ 8, which is quite constraining, I think we still can do continual improvement. But let me focus on Procrustean. Why did I use the word Procrustean again and again? I think it relates to adult human development. One size fits all is the notion underpinning Procrustean. So Dr. Deming has sort of outlined the theory of profound knowledge, as theory of knowledge and knowledge of variations, which the material world guidelines, especially the, for example, process validation guideline 2011 with the references to ASTM standards, provide a basis to manage knowledge of variation. Theory of knowledge, I think, is the quality by design framework that evolved in the PAT and the ICHQ8. So what is missing now? The missing element we need to focus on is appreciation for system and psychology of change. So how do we bring plan, do, check, and act in matter as a cycle, not as a checkbox, into our mind? Observe, imagine, think with epistemology. How do I know what I know? And then verbalize our understanding so that others can observe that understanding and we can imagine together, think together, and come up with solutions and not shy away from, if I don't look, there is no problem. So I think this is fundamental here. We are good and evil integrated in a system that is as good or as bad as our dominant personal reality. Adequate, well-controlled, qualified by training, experience, so that we fairly and responsibly make decisions is requirement by law. Good manufacturing practices. Procrastination is the lowest order of development of adults. Looking good, being good, doing good, and seeing good are other stages of development, which translate very well to Professor Keegan's considerations for impulse control, imperialist, socialized mind, self-authored mind, and self-transforming mind. Let's remember, self-authorship, the stage in adult human development, is when our systems orientation begins. Self-authorship is at every level, in every job, is a key requirement and a key responsibility. So that is my message broadly, and I would request you to take a look at some of the papers we have written recently, and here are 3 examples I think that are open access that you can download from AAPS Pharm Tech, and I'll urge you to really download and read these papers. By design is our intention, which comes Dil Se by heart. Uh, Integrated design and systems thinking is the key. The left is not wrong when the right is right. The fabric of the world is becoming fragmented, such that even the mirror of nature no longer appears natural to us. The master has been more betrayed by its emissary, especially over the last 200 years. Only at the precipice do we evolve. Is this our moment? Are we prepared? The answer is within each one of us. If each one of us holds our candle high and we go in together, we can address any challenge that comes our way. So my keynote is, power without wisdom is the recipe for disaster. You can find the way forward to maturity in the heart, sense within to awaken, and attend this workshop, Dil Se. The message I want to give to the world is nobody should die alone. And this is the lesson we must learn this time around. Thank you.